3 years ago, I watched my neighbor sign paperwork on a $640,000 combine. Good machine. Perfect machine, actually. And last fall, he called me from his kitchen at 9 p.m. Couldn't make his equipment payment. The combine was sitting right there in the shed. Worked every single day of harvest, didn't miss a single beat. And he still couldn't make the payment. That call messed with me for weeks, because sitting there in my truck in the dark, I realized that could have been me. 6 years ago, it almost was. Nobody teaches you this stuff. Not your dad, not your lender, definitely not your equipment dealer. You figure it out the hard way or you figure it out too late. I spent the first 10 years of my farming life buying iron based on horsepower ratings and what the guy at the coffee shop said was a good deal. Built up debt that took me years to dig out of. Not because I bought bad machines, because I never understood what those machines were supposed to give me back. That's what we're doing today right here on Farm Gear Pro. We're taking a realistic $1 million equipment spread, the kind a serious 2,000-acre corn and soybean operation is actually running in 2026, and finding out what it genuinely returns. Not the brochure number, the real number, the one that determines whether you're building something or slowly bleeding out while your shed fills up with shiny equipment. Stay with me because the part most people miss, I'm saving that for the end. And it'll change how you think about every equipment decision you make from here on out. Let's get real about what $1 million in iron actually looks like in 2026. People hear that number and picture some massive corporate operation. It's not. It's a serious working family farm. Your primary row crop tractor in that 370 to 400 horsepower range, John Deere 8R, Case IH Magnum, whatever brand you trust, is sitting between $350,000 and $420,000 new right now. Your combine with a corn head and bean head, $580,000 to $670,000. Just those two pieces, and you're already past $1 million before you've looked at a planter or a sprayer. So when your neighbor says he's got $1 million in the shed, he's not bragging. He's just describing a working farm in America in 2026. Now here's what should stop you cold. Most farmers know their equipment payment to the penny, know their insurance premium, know their trade value. But ask them what their equipment actually returned last season. What yield it protected, what input waste it cut, what acres it gained during a critical window. And they go quiet. Because they never tracked it. I didn't track it for the first 12 years I farmed. And those 12 years cost me more money than I want to think about. Let's start with the combine, because this is where more money is made or lost on a row crop operation than any other single decision you'll make all year. I don't care how good your seed genetics are. I don't care how perfect your fertility program was. If your combine isn't set right and isn't capable for your conditions, you are physically leaving money on the ground behind that machine, and you cannot go back and pick it up. Not one single bushel. A flagship combine in 2026, John Deere X9 1100, Case IH Axial Flow 250 series, is sitting at $550,000 to $650,000 with a reasonable header setup. I know that number hurts. But before you react to the price tag, think about this. Land grant university research, not manufacturer marketing, actual extension data replicated across multiple Corn Belt states, shows harvest loss on corn runs anywhere from 1 to 4 bushels per acre, depending on equipment condition, ground speed, and crop conditions that year. On a 2,000-acre corn operation, averaging 190 bushels per acre, a realistic yield for solid ground in the central Corn Belt right now, recovering just 1 bushel per acre means 2,000 bushels back in your bin. With corn trading in that $4 to $4.50 range through most of early 2026, that's $8,000 to $9,000 in recovered grain every single year. Stack that over 5 years, that's $40,000 to $45,000. From 1 bushel per acre that you were leaving on the ground and driving away from without ever once stopping to check. But here's what's even more expensive than the bushels you can see on the ground. The quality hits you can't see until your elevator settlement sheet shows up. When your rotor speed is wrong for the conditions, when your concave clearance isn't right for the crop moisture you're running, when you're pushing ground speed because a front is coming, you're not just losing bushels, you're cracking corn, you're shattering beans, you're delivering loads with more fines and more moisture variation than you should, and elevators dock you for that. Quietly. It shows up as a small line on your settlement sheet, and most guys just shrug and drive back to the field. I stopped shrugging 4 years ago when I added up every quality dock across a full harvest season on my operation. I'm not throwing out a specific number because every elevator is different, but I'll tell you, it was enough to completely change how I approach combined setup from the very first morning of harvest every year. Right here, if this is the conversation you needed to hear, hit that like button and subscribe to Farm Gear Pro. We do this every week. Real talk. No dealer spin, no brand loyalty. Just straight equipment and money conversation for guys who are serious about their operations. Share this with one farmer you know who's about to make a big equipment decision. Might save him a serious amount of pain. Now let's keep going. Planters. I'm going to say something that might make some of you mad. The planter is the most financially important machine on a corn operation, and it gets the least respect in the equipment budget conversation. Farmers spend months agonizing over combine features and argue tractor brands at the co-op like it's a religion. And then run a 15-year-old planter with worn row units and wonder why their stand counts are all over the place. A modern 24-row planter with individual row electric drive, high-speed capability, integrated downforce control, and proper section control, you're looking at $250,000 to $330,000 in 2026. A high-speed planting system that genuinely lets you plant at 7 to 8 miles per hour without sacrificing singulation gives you more planted acres per day during that critical window in late April and early May when every day matters. The agronomic data across the Corn Belt on planting date and final yield is not subtle. Every day you slip past your optimal planting window costs you yield potential you cannot recover with more fertilizer or better chemistry. It's gone. And with quality corn seed running $280 to $340 per bag in 2026. Section control that eliminates overlap waste in your point rows and headlands is a real trackable reduction in your input costs every single season. But here's the thing about planters I've never once heard a dealer bring up. Stand consistency. When your row units are applying the right downforce for varying soil conditions in real time, when your seed depth is consistent across the entire field, when your singulation is tight, you get uniform plant development, uniform ear size, uniform dry down timing at harvest, and uniform dry down means you make one well-timed harvest pass instead of multiple passes chasing different parts of the same field at acceptable moisture. One fewer pass across your corn acres is real fuel saved, real time saved during the most stressful weeks of your year, and real reduction in compaction from harvest traffic. The financial chain that starts with a $300,000 planter in the spring runs all the way through to your elevator ticket and your fuel bill at the end of the year. That is what asset ROI actually means on a working farm. Now, let's talk sprayers, because this is where I get the most pushback from farmers who are custom hiring their applications and think they're saving money. The capital cost of a self-propelled sprayer is real. You're looking at $350,000 to $480,000 for a solid mid-range machine in 2026. I understand why guys hesitate. But here's what you give up when you're on somebody else's schedule. You give up timing. When tar spot moves into your county on corn, and in a wet year it moves fast, the difference between spraying at the right growth stage and spraying 4 days late because your custom operator had 3 other farms ahead of you can be a real measurable yield difference at harvest. Grey leaf spot doesn't wait. Sudden death in soybeans doesn't send you a calendar invite. When you own the sprayer, you apply when the crop needs it, not when somebody else's schedule allows it. And with modern sprayers running individual nozzle control and pulse width modulation, application overlap is dramatically reduced compared to older boom technology. When you're spending $55 to $75 per acre on your full fungicide and herbicide program in 2026, even a modest, consistent reduction in overlap waste is real money off your operating expenses every single season. Now here's the part I promised you at the beginning, the part most people completely skip. And honestly, it's the part that separates operations that build real wealth from operations that just stay busy. Depreciation management. Not exciting, I know. But in 2026, the used equipment market has shown us clearly that late-model, low-hour, well-maintained iron holds its value meaningfully better than machines run hard and maintained minimally. Every oil change you do on schedule, every machine you store under a roof instead of leaving in a fence row, every service record you keep, You are protecting the resale value side of your ROI equation. And that matters because your lender, your operating line, and your balance sheet all care about what your iron is worth right now. Not what you paid for it, what it's worth today. That depreciation curve is either working for you or against you every single year, whether you're paying attention to it or not. The farmers winning in 2026 aren't always the ones with the newest iron or the most acres. They're the ones who understand their numbers, who treat their equipment like what it actually is, a business asset in a serious business, and demand a real return from every dollar they put into that shed. That's what Farm Gear Pro is about. That's what this channel has always been about. So here's what I want you to take away from today. Every piece of iron you're considering, before you ever sit down with a dealer, ask yourself 3 honest questions. Does this machine help me capture revenue I'm currently leaving behind? Does it reduce my operating expenses in a consistent, measurable way I can actually track? And does it hold its value well enough that when I trade it doesn't crater my balance sheet right when I need financial flexibility? Those 3 questions. Every equipment decision, every time. That's what separates the guys building real equity from the guys who are always one bad crop year away from a 9 p.m. phone call they don't want to make. I've been on both sides of that call. I know which side I want to be on, and I think you do too. Thanks for watching Farm Gear Pro. If you found this breakdown valuable, share it with a fellow farmer and comment below your thoughts on this topic. See you in the next one.